Join me on a fascinating journey where I show you some of the techniques used in scale area modelling. Hello again modelers, and welcome back to the channel. This is the first video in a set that might be fairly interesting. I put a poll up on the channel just asking if anybody would be interested in what I'm about to attempt, and the opinion was that you would be interested, so I'm going to do it. Hopefully it'll be a short set of videos. What happened recently was I was flying this model, which is a Seagull Chipmunk 81-inch span, and the elevator servo stopped working at about 200 feet. Unfortunately, it meant that the model hit the ground rather hard and it broke. But looking at the damage, and I'll show you it all in a second when we get into the video, it looks like it's probably repairable. It's quite a bit of damage, and some of it may need recovering because we'll have to go inside to check on the integrity of the structure. But one of the things you must do if you do have a crash like this, even if you think the model is a write-off and you're not going to do anything with it and that's it, it's going in the bin, put it all in a bag. Collect everything, and I mean everything. There's little parts like this that you find on the ground, you think, it's just rubbish. Well, it isn't, because you can piece all these bits together, and even if you can't use them again, you can use them to create new parts just by piecing them loosely together and drawing around it all, and you can create a new part. So what I would say is keep everything, every last bit, and really have a good search in the impact area for all the debris, because every little bit could be useful. Things like wheel covers and all sorts of just nonsense that you think, that's not worth it. So if you think this is going to be interesting, then join me on our travels as we try and restore WP971, or Spinach and Custard, back to its former glory. All right, let's get started by having a look at the debris. This is exactly as it came from the field, apart from the fact that I disconnected the linkages from the servos in the tail, so that the tail could, be taken away separately, because the two were just hanging together by the cables, and that was not good. So those of you who've seen the picture, the crash damage picture, and looked at it and commented, that they'd come apart, I took those apart so that I could remove the sections. Anyway, let's have a look in detail at the bits, and we'll take it from there. So let's have a look at the parts that we have got. Probably the main one to look at first is the tail section. If we look at the tail, the elevators have both pulled off, which is to be expected, but they're not really suffered too much damage. So first of all, I'm just going to disconnect the quick link that is holding the elevator to the rod. Okay, and that's that seems to have survived reasonably well, so we've got an elevator that's okay. While I'm here, there's the whole top canopy assembly survived. Even the pilot's still staring intently at the compass, hoping for some sort of guidance, but it didn't come. You can see here that one of the elevators pulled right out and has damaged a little bit of the frame of it. So where is the elevator? So the port elevator is mostly intact. There's a little bit of a dent there that's not really too serious, but at this end we've got a little tiny bit of damage in there, which again is not really significant. Again, if we take this arm or clevis off of this rod, we'll probably see that we've kept enough of the parts that it'll go back together fairly easily. With a bit of work anyway. Yes, there we go. So most of the parts are, we'll just go back together with a little bit of recovering, patching. It's actually okay. It's yeah, no, that's fine the way it is. So that's also okay. we come to the fuselage, to the rear fuselage itself, the fin and rudder are fine. The tail plane is all fine. There's a little bit of a dent in the covering there, but it's nothing major. The tail wheel assembly is all fine. Everything's solid. What is unusual, well, I say unusual, but it's happened on a couple of these seagull chipmunks I've heard of now, is that the tail is detached very cleanly. And it looks like they assembled the tail section in a jig and then assemble the front section and then join the two together, and it doesn't really have any mechanical connection between the two halves. There's no pieces of wood that run through, apart from maybe these sections here, but as you can see, they're only 1/8 of an inch tall, 1/8 of an inch thick, 4 of them. So there's not much strength between the two. Now, a few people have complained and said, oh well, that's not very good, Seagull's really done a poor job there, there's no integrity between the two parts, that's rubbish design. Well, actually, it's flown for 2 years, 3 years, and it's never had a problem. So following the Colin Chapman principle, as long as it doesn't fall apart on the ground or when it's being used normally, then it's strong enough, and I agree with that. This hit the ground from 100 feet up, so that braking probably meant that some energy was taken out of the impact, which meant other pieces survived. So I've not got a problem with that, and it's actually going to make repairing it a lot easier. We'll probably have to make a new one of these rings, and then take this one out once we've made a copy and drop a new one in. The same on the one at the rear of the fuselage. In fact, this is probably the one from the fuselage, but we'll see. So as far as the tail goes, there's only that rear bulkhead that needs doing. Even the sheeting's all intact. The film is a bit saggy, but it has been for a while, so that'll just need re-shrinking. So that's the tail section. Fairly straightforward. We have a flap here that's come off. It's pulled the horn out, but that's fine. These sections of hinge, they actually splay, as you can see on this one. Maybe you can't. Look at the wing in question. So this is the wing, and you can see how the hinges work, and the two arms go either side of two pins, and what happens in a crash, these arms all have heat shrink around them to keep them closed so that they won't ping off, but on impact the heat shrink breaks, these splay apart and they come off the model. As you can see, the hinges are undamaged, so putting that flap back on that wing is going to be a doddle. The undercarriage has got nicely bent, so there's a pin that runs into an aluminium block, so we'll take this out, and we should be able to sort all that out fairly easily. There's no damage in the area around it, it's all solid. There's a few scuff marks and what have you, but the entire wing is good and rigid still. Leading edge undamaged, upper surface again, it's all undamaged. So I think we're got away lightly on the wing. What we can see here is some damage with, this is the wing retention where the wing is actually held on to the fuselage. So we'll take that off. On the other side, the wing was still retained on the fuselage, and I took it out, undid the screw and took the wing off the tube. The tube is completely pretzel shaped. Well, it was. I've straightened it out to get a length. So that's the clamp, or the bit of wood that is mounted in the fuselage that this wing clamps to. This is all solid. We've got some broken root rib, so we need to look at that. And looking at the wing tube that's inside there, it appears fine. It really does, which is amazing considering the state of the aluminium tube that went across. So that's fairly good. Really good. So that wing won't take too much at all. We'll take the undercarriage leg off in a minute. In fact, I'll do it now. No, we'll do it in a minute. So this is the starboard wing, and you can see the hinges have ripped out. And people have said, upgrade the hinges. You should never use these cloth hinges on a big model. I completely disagree. They've pulled out on impact, but yeah, I would expect that. But in 2 years of flying, they've never come out. So, and before every flight, you know, as I'm sure you all do, you pull on all the surfaces to make sure they are secure, and that's part of your BMFA's checklist before you commit aviation. So, and they've never been loose. So the impact, again, throwing these off, it's probably absorbed another little bit of energy that has then, you know, I'd rather they pull out and soak up a bit of energy than the leading edge smash or something like that. We've got a little bit of a dent here, which actually I think might have been there before the accident. So, so we need to sort that, whether that's a patch or whether it will just re-shrink, I don't know. But this undercarriage leg is twisted a little bit, but again, it's only knocked it loose. It's not done too much damage. And the flap is still attached. So that's all good. Let's just take that aileron off of there so that it doesn't dangle and get broken. So that's the wing, the other wing. So now we come to the interesting bit, and this is the bit that's going to take most of our effort and most work, and that's the fuselage. So looking at the fuselage, the motor's loose, the propeller's obviously broken. Just looking for a spanner to take the prop nut off. So that's the prop off. The spinner, the two screws are still in it. The way I do spinners on these electric aircraft is I make them out of 3D printed cones, but then I use a commercial aluminium backplate, and that looks perfectly straight. But we'll spin it in the lathe just to make sure, or even just put it back on the motor and see what's going on. But that looks fine. So just take the screws out, or enough to get the broken plastic away. And I'll do the screws up again because I don't want to lose the screws. So the spinner backplates seems fine. That's a wing bolt, so we don't want to lose that. I'm going to put that in there just for now. No, it won't go in there. I'll have to go into the plate. It doesn't really matter. So put it in there just for now, so we don't lose it. So that's the main parts of the model looked at. Fuselage wise, we need to get this cowl off so we can see what's going on in here. You can see the cowl is pretty well mashed. There's a lot of balsa coming out of here, so a lot of the mounting plates and what have you has gone. So let's get this screw off here. If I can. And it's a little alarming because the fuselage side is going, which makes me slightly concerned. The screw's not coming out straight, so the mounting blocks are definitely all knackered. That's a technical term. This is where most of the issues are going to be. We've got some smashed areas here. couple of screws on this side. Now you can buy a new cowl for these. They're about £35. But seeing as we're trying to save money, I'm a cheapskate, we'll have a go at actually repairing the cowl as well, because this probably is a typical ARTF smash. It'd be interesting to see how you do this. So here we go, big reveal. Okay, that's much better than I expected. There's a very mashed lipo. Actually, it's not a lipo, that's a life cell, L-I-F-E. So that's probably toast. But I know it works, so it's still working because I was able to turn the receiver on to check the servo was working. But it's definitely seen better days. That bolt's loose, and I'm a bit surprised that that bolt's loose. Oh, I see why, yeah, because it probably was clamping a frame. Interesting. Not sure why that bolt should be loose, but I can only assume that some of this mounting was there. So that probably went. That probably was like that. So we need to make sure we got the other bits. Let's see what else we got in here. So we got the other side. So that's the two sides of the box. So we should be able to use these bits to piece this box back together. It's a bit of spinner. This power box itself is bolted on. So if we took those 4 bolts out, this whole nose section, which attaches the motor, will come off. So let's do that if we can. The more I think about it, the more I think this bolt has worked loose over a period of time. But, it's obviously not, the motor hasn't come loose, but it has become loose. That is glued on there because it just makes it convenient for plugging it in. So I shall pop that off. So we need to make a new box. Fairly straightforward, that would be fairly simple to make. We don't have to draw around anything to make that, we can just make a box. So it's fairly straightforward. The other way we could do it is we could just mount studding on here and actually mount the motor on the studding shafts to bring it out to here, but that would be quite long. We'll worry about that over there. But as you can see, the front of the model is fairly, well, it is, it's fine. It's relatively robust. We've got some cracking through here where a bit of the cowl has come through. We've also got a bit of a break there, so that'll need pushing all back together again, and then I'll probably put a ply plate across the back of it, or even across the front. Actually, there's nothing in the way here to stop me putting a whole new plate across there. That is still rigid, so there's no flex in any of that, so that's all good. This bottom bit is mashed, so in fact it does look like it's broken along that joint there, but nothing's moving, so I think we'll probably be all right. But we can probably plate this whole bit here, pull it all back into shape and plate it. What I will do is I'm going to take all of this balsa sheeting away from here, because that's all broken anyway. So I'll probably cut out all the way along the sides and all of this section out, because what I would like to do while we're doing this exercise is these wing fairings are just completely naff and unscale. Same at the back. They're slightly better at the back, but they're still not right. So what I would like to do is to redo these wing fairings. So I'm going to get into this area anyway, so this area would need resheeting. So I'm going to use that as an opportunity to get in there. So that's fine. Still shedding loads of bits. But, it's a spinner by the look of it. So as far as the wing roots go, you can see we've broken this again. So I think again we'll be able to push it all back together and plate it. Worst case, I'll draw around this. In fact, I'll draw around it anyway. Draw around this root rib, make 2 more just in case, and then we've got them in stock, or just draw around one of them so I've got a template. And if I need to replace them, I will do. There's a bit of broken sheeting at the back, but that's, it's all fine, and I've got all the parts. There is a section that I showed you earlier, little half moon section that goes in here again, so we've got all that, so that's not so bad. It's quite a clean break, isn't it, really? Got kind of lucky. So what we've got on this side is that, I've shown you that. Then on this side it's a little bit worse. The root rib has gone, so we will have to replace the entire root rib. We've got some damage in here as well, so I think again all this fairing might have to come off. And this rear fairing is all wrong anyway, so I'll get rid of all of that. The critical bit is to make sure that the root rib sits in the same place that it is now. Looking at the wing tube, that's split. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to pull that back together and then run a glass patch around the outside to sort that out. And that'll make that strong again. I don't really want to go into taking that tube out because it won't be easy, and then we're into the heart of the structure again. So I'll repair that, it'll be fine. If we put enough glass cloth over that, it'll be fine. And there we go. That will probably all just notch back together, or well, actually I'm going to replace that root rib anyway, but whether I leave a bit of the section of the front and just replace the damaged bits, I don't know yet, but none of it's insurmountable. So I think probably the best thing to do is to start peeling all those bits away so I can get back to good structure, and start replacing bits and pieces. So it's not disastrous. I think we can do this. It's not as bad as you'd think. Right, we skipped over the cowl. Let's have a quick butchers at the cowl. So let's get the motor out. So there's the rest of our motor mount, which all looks fairly normal. The bearings sound okay, just as notchy as they've ever been. These Turnigy 4258s are quite notchy motors, but looking at the shaft, actually, no, the shaft looks good. The best way is to spin it in the lathe, something like that, and see how it is, but it looks pretty good. So I think we've probably got away with it on the motor front. The leads sometimes can get chafed, as you can see there, but a little bit of heat shrink over that, and it'll be good. It doesn't look like any strands are broken. It's just been chafing. In fact, that's possibly been chafing for a while. So so it's good to get rid of that. But none of the other wires have chafed, so I don't think we've got an issue with them shorting out or anything like that. So that's going to be reusable as well, which is good. And then we come on to the cowl itself. So it's got a fair bit of cracking and splintering and everything, but just by taking it off the model, we've got it more or less back into shape. So what I think we'll do is we'll start just piecing it back together with some CA. Get the joints that we can make back, and start just teasing it into shape with CA. And yeah, I think that'll be fine actually. we've not lost any parts. No, that's actually that's also better than I thought. So what we will have to do is reinforce it on the inside. So we'll piece it back together with CA, and we'll use some carbon tissue or some 25-gram cloth, something like that, just to reinforce the inside and push it all back into place. That's actually cracked quite badly, that one, but it will all go back. And we'll plate it on the inside. We'll put cloth on the inside, then we'll sand the outside so it's a lot thinner, and then we'll put more cloth on the outside, and we'll get around it that way. But it's easily repairable, that is. That's not so bad. We've missed a bit there, I think. We've actually lost a bit of the cowl, I think. Oh no. Yeah, we've lost just a little tiny bit of the cowl there, a splinter. So we'll have to hold it together like that. CA in here, CA down there. Get it all closed up again, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So there you go. That's the chipmunk in the state that it's in. So all in all, I think we've got off lightly there. But if the wings were damaged, you'd just tear the covering off and repair the wing and put the covering back on. So if you look at the whole thing, you think, oh my God, no, there's tons of work there. But there isn't, actually. There really isn't that much work. You've just got to be methodical and piece it all back together. So there you go. If you want to follow along, then that would be fantastic. And I look forward to your comments at the bottom of the videos. But the first one will be starting to put things back together, I guess. So see you soon.